Hi, this is Little Dwarf playing games while rambling incoherently into a microphone. Why? Well, just because I can, and I continue with Amnesia: The Dark Descent, blind. I have gathered all of the alchemical ingredients I need, so let me get out and go back to the alchemy lab to prepare the acid. It became impossible to avoid. The commotion in the streets begged for his attention. As he opened the shutters to the French soldiers, opened fire on the two young men fighting back. Their voices were silenced in a haze of gun smoke. Okay, it seems I always get hit when getting out of a given section, which is interesting. Few cuts and bruises. Oh, I guess that's because I've walked into the moss? But then, how do I... Like, wasn't the laboratory right there? Yeah, archives. So how do I get back to the laboratory? To even make the acid in the first place? Maybe I'm just supposed to run through it, but that seems unlikely. Though, maybe it was the case. After enduring 3 days in the Algiers, a sailboat was finally arranged to take him across the Mediterranean Sea to Gibraltar. Having reached British territory, it was just a matter of reserving a cabin on the SS Hortensia and headed for London.
Someone's coming.
Okay, so I am currently wounded, although not heavily, so I will keep the laudanum. I will keep the laudanum for when I'm like more heavily wounded. Pour different chemicals. Okay, so what's the recipe again? Calamine and orpiment, and then caprite and aqua regia. So first calamine, then orpiment, then caprite. Need to turn on the burners first. So wait, so maybe now I need to use, but I don't remember which is which. Like, I'm very tired. It's actually, like, I know it was just a second ago, but I think it was this, then this. to be a container below the contraption, which... What? Okay, so I guess I have to do it all again. Ah, okay, because I first need to turn on the burners. Yeah, picked up a pot of acid. Okay. The stairs have collapsed. Find a way to climb back up. He sat down by the Casbah wall, gasping for air. Sweat poured from his forehead and something. Okay, so let's try using the acid on this. The cloth smelled of desert and damp musk. The pieces lay scrambled on the top. Too many of them, he thought. Or perhaps too few.
It sure is dark in here.
Yes, and there's a good reason for it. But you can light the lamp now if you wish.
What's the reason? For the darkness, that is.
Stay close. Be careful not to stray.
What's the reason? Why is it so dark?
Pay attention, Daniel. It's important that you keep going straight and make sure not to stray.
Not entirely sure what's the deal with enemies. Like, the game seems to strongly suggest I'm supposed to hide in the darkness, but last time I was standing in full light, in full view, and they still didn't attack me. Not to mention, standing in the darkness, is adverse to my sanity. So those two goals seem to be contradictory. Which kind of makes sense as a game mechanic, You need to hide in the darkness, but you cannot do it for too long because you will fall mad. But what I don't understand is, I wasn't doing that, and the enemy still seemingly didn't notice me, so it seems there's not much benefit in actually adhering to that rule. about no?
22nd of June, 1839. It's been more than a month since my last entry. After the event inside the underground chamber in Algeria, Professor Herbert insisted I return to England. He said he didn't want to risk forfeiting the entire expedition lest I took a turn for the worse. An excessive decision, in retrospect. But I'm glad it turned out that way. I found my journal this morning in the haphazard collection of things brought home from Africa. Next to it lay the broken stone orb wrapped in cloth. I tried to assemble it, but couldn't. The pieces wouldn't fit together, as if they weren't from the same object. Could I have imagined it all? Was there ever a complete orb?
Okay, so this is the main chamber from before. Yeah, and this circles back to here as well. Okay, I don't think my sanity recovers per se while staying in the light. I think it just doesn't deteriorate any further. Although it does kind of feel like it is deteriorating even now. Like the screen is becoming more and more blurry. And the camera movement is like unstable.
"25th of June, 1839. I feel the need to continue this journal, even though it was intended for my journey to Africa. This must be something very important. I just know it. I've taken it upon myself to piece the orb back together, but it's been more difficult than one might think. The pieces are behaving strangely. They seem to change color, shape, and texture, but ever so slightly. Yesterday, I took careful measurements and notated any significant markings. Today, I confirmed my suspicions. They were changing. I was terrified and rushed off to see the finest geologist in London, Sir William Smith. I approached the subject with care, and we discussed how rocks change form. He told me about the nature of glass, how it eventually collapses on itself, like ice slowly melting over the course of centuries. Smith eased my mind a bit, but I can't escape the feeling that these shards have otherworldly properties.
You think? Like, even if... Because, you know, that's true. Rocks and generally all objects do kind of change their form over time, because obviously everything in the universe is subject to entropy. But I'm not entirely sure how knowing that made the protagonist feel at ease, because seemingly with the orb it was happening overnight, which is still not a normal occurrence. Like, it's like, I don't know, like knowing that flesh decomposes, but then witnessing, for example, somebody's corpse decompose completely in like 10 seconds. That's still, the action itself might be normal, but the circumstances and the timeline is not. This hatch is too heavy to lift by hand. I'm gonna take a winch. Although I still very much feel like I'm losing my mind. Okay, this goes back here. It's stuck. Something is clogging the crank and pulley contraption. The rope won't pull the hatch open. Something must be clogging the pulley. Yeah, it would be easier to notice if there wasn't so much blur. I wonder what happens if I turn completely insane. Like, I don't think the game ends because that's what the hard difficulty notes is going to happen. So conversely, a contrario, it can't happen on normal difficulty. He crashed through the surface. The dark Atlantic waters smothered him as he struggled to make sense of the situation. Keep out of the water. Yeah, I guess that's good advice, but, I wasn't exactly sure which way to go. I hope the game autosaved. Okay, it did. Is this enough? Okay, it is enough. This counts as being out of the water, curiously enough. Okay, so it's another sort of timed event, so I'll wait for the time to actually elapse. Okay, that is definitely a human torso. And that is a human hand. Barely conscious. Okay, so let's use this. Wound is bleeding quite badly. I think there's something on this shelf over there. A hollow needle. A strong surgical needle. Okay, surely it has to be used for something. Archived tunnels. It's locked with a simple lock. Can I... Okay, I can pick the lock with this. Something large brushed against his legs, and he felt himself being dragged along the current by the beast. He pushed himself above the surface. "Help!" he cried, as the ocean swallowed him again. Block the path, you say. Interesting. Although I kind of question the logic of, because the water is like very shallow. It's like ankle deep. So whatever the monster that is hunting me is, it's more like, it's like a piranha, or like, it has to be very small actually, or it has to be like able to squash itself near the bottom, Because otherwise, how would it even fit in the water without the rest of it, peeking out? He felt himself being hoisted out of the ocean. The lacerated hull of the SS Hortensia glittered in the soothing warm yellow light of the setting sun. He turned his head to the calm ocean. Is this another dream? I'm not sure, but that's a very serene scene compared to what just happened a few moments before. Okay, that's definitely weird though, because those are like women's legs, and then there is this monstrous spine and a baby's head spitting water. It's definitely weird. Pretty weird. Okay, the study here. Guest room. Storage.
An ascending room. Will it take us to the inner sanctum?
It will definitely take care of the vertical part of our journey. So, you have ridden an elevator before?
Yes, the Colosseum at Regent's Park has one. It takes you to the gallery where you can view the panorama.
Good. This ride might be a little longer, and in the other direction.
Did they really used to call elevators ascending rooms? That would be kind of interesting. It's not working. Although, to be honest, if it's going down, it's more of a descending room, isn't it? Machine room. It's locked. Herbert's trunk was wrapped in a rope. The lock had been broken by thieves, he assumed. He wondered if anything had been left considering all the hands it had passed. a letter regarding the discovery of an orb. To my most trusted student and friend, Johann Weiner. The most remarkable thing happened as I was traveling through the Prussian woods this summer. I finally found one of the orbs I have been looking for the last 20 odd years. It is as inexplicable as the Heliodromus described it in Hortus Conclusus. It was as it was told about, an underground Mithraic temple crowned with an unearthly artifact. The orb was big enough to fill my cupped hands, and the texture was smooth and jagged. The color washed while rich. Contrast is not enough to describe its nature. It was an impossibility, an artificial paradox captured within a stone. I was staying in a nearby village called Altstadt, investigating one of the antiquated trails, when I finally found the cavern. I went inside, and suddenly I could verify the truth of these enigmatic artifacts. They were real. As you understand, this is my most important discovery of my life, but it has also become my greatest fear. As I entered the underground chamber, I could feel that I was trespassing. Because of my curiosity, I did my best to fight these instincts and fetched the orb from its place. I scrambled out of the chamber and into the woods. I could sense something was following me. It bayed loudly as it closed in. The beast, this guardian of the orb, was relentless in its pursuit. I made my way to the nearby ravine when I stumbled upon some men fishing in the lake. I tried to warn them as I passed, but fortunately they remained as I continued my escape. When I heard their cry of pain echo through the valley, I felt such a tremendous sense of relief, thinking I would be spared. Suddenly a blue shimmering light engulfed me, and the colors of the forest were washed away before my eyes. I kept running through the bleak surroundings. The trees had turned charcoal black, with leaves of cinder, the ground covered in murky water. I passed on through the drenched lands as the glowing ember gave way to the rising wind and rained on me. I could hear pleading screams in the distance, and I joined in as pain and fear overtook me. I fell to the ground, gasping for air. This certainly must sound strange, but I had been carried miles away across the Alps to a grassy field outside Genoa. The Guardian had taken the orb from me, but still, until this day I fear its return. Sometimes I lay awake at night listening for the howling cry I heard in the forest. It has been nearly a decade since that day, and I still haven't been able to write down about the incident. The last time we spoke, you told me about your interest and ongoing research into the mythic orbs, and I realized I owed you the truth about my visit to Altstadt. Your friend and mentor, Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa. Okay, so he was indeed there, according to his own account, because I read about that earlier in one of the other documents. But who was that letter to? Was that to Alexander or to me? Okay. That's a dog's head.
Let's see what you have to offer. What a mess. I should have sharpened the saw, but I can sense it. It's definitely there.
So it seems he was experimenting on living creatures in general, trying to find something, I don't know, some essence of life or whatever. There is a letter which might shed more light. Understanding locomotion. Milestones of the human anatomy. Chambers of the human skull. Understanding balance. The canine jaw. Animal experiment, Canis lupus familiaris, 1658, April 12. After a short study, it is clear that the agitation found among humans can be found in the dog. Fear and pain induce stress, which seems to trigger an endogenous response, causing the animal to burst with energy. I believe that the catalyst is produced in the brain. It is difficult to determine exactly where and what it is, but I can sense it. It reeks of cosmic genesis. There is an inherent problem in harvesting this energy, since the creature is bound to die from the exercise. I must refine this process of torture to enable any real work to be done. More experiments must be performed, and it seems that only human beings are able to produce the amount necessary. It might be their ability to appreciate the severity of the process that ultimately augments their experience of terror. Okay, so apparently what he's after is not necessarily blood itself, but like adrenaline, or like, maybe it's blood spiced with hormones produced by stress, because actually that's not an uncommon trope in vampire media. For example, in the newest edition of Vampire the Masquerade, the tabletop game, they actually include something like that, where people of different temperaments and people experiencing different strong emotions have blood that tastes differently based on that. A blood of someone who is depressed is going to taste different to the blood of someone who is like furious or something. So maybe it's a similar kind of situation, but I also can't fail to notice that the date on this is 1658, which is like at least like almost 200 years ago, which would seem to support the idea that he is indeed like 200 years old, or maybe even older. Which if he is a vampire, that would kind of check out. Okay, so his desk was full of human skulls, apparently. And skulls with no jaws, no less. Is that him? Because this specifically does look like an original piece made for the game, rather than a historic painting. Anatomy Frontiers, 1658, January the 9th. Further disappointment. The antiquarian's latest findings yielded nothing. I'm still unable to grasp the inner workings of life and its relation to the power I sense within it. I shall pursue more books on the subject, but I suspect it will be in vain. Since no research has been made in my particular interest, I must attempt to fill the void myself. Clearly humans emanate more of the energy I seek, but I hope animals will suffice, as they would prove less of a hassle to acquire. Okay, I came from here, right? So I literally went back. Find another way around the rubble in the study. The cracked window panes are held together only by a weak wooden frame. Okay, maybe I can like throw a chair at it. Indeed I can. It seems that even the surroundings of the castle are covered in this flesh moss. Elevator renovation plans. Chamber controller. Using steam power for elevation. Elevator schematics. When will it be my turn? Have I not shown restraint? My patience spans centuries. From where I came, mankind is not even a wasted breath, yet I bow to you. I have done so much for you, and I have gained nothing in return. Agrippa, I trusted you. It was I who, in all fairness, should have entered that gate. Okay, but I still don't know. Like, this very much seems like a receptacle for, like, storing memories. It seems to be some kind of a magical device that holds thoughts of a person. But I'm not entirely sure how, or even why, or whose exact thoughts they are. Elevator machine instructions. If the elevator breaks down again, make sure to use the steam engine to build up pressure before channeling into the machinery. Adjust the levers to get the right amount of pressure inside the chamber. The meters should read up 8 and down 8. Make sure the flow is set according to the following chart. Trinity steam set functions, 4-phase amplitude, complete steam flow cycle. Note that the machine will not check proper configuration until all rods are inserted. Flow cycle rod. Okay, so I need a couple of those. Not sure how many though. Okay, so this is the other side of the cave-in. So I think I've gathered what I came here to gather. A thin cold mist brushed against his face as he stepped outside. London weather could be cruel, but it was the kind of cruelty he could handle. Is this another dream? He thought and screamed at the top of his lungs.
My journal is gone. What would they want with my journal? of July, 1839. I received a letter today from the Algerian governor's office disclosing the fate of Herbert's expedition. About a week after my departure, Abdullah, one of the men traveling with us, returned from the desert. He was badly injured, as if maimed by a lion. The man rambled deliriously about the expedition being attacked by something horrible. The French quickly dispatched a search party to look for the expedition. After searching for days, they found the camp abandoned without any trace of Herbert or his men. Tomorrow, I'll retrieve the things they recovered from Herbert's tent at the customs house. I don't know what to make of it, but I'm worried for him. of July, 1839. Today I picked up Herbert's things at the customs house. I dug through the trove of documents he had carried and found a log detailing the expedition. The nature of this text ranged from quick notes to colorful accounts of transpired events. I skimmed the pages, trying to figure out what might have happened. May 17th, the day I was trapped inside the orb chamber, Herbert dryly states, "Recovered Daniel after 1 hour of entrapment." This confused me greatly. I was suffocating within minutes. How could I have lasted an hour? I continued reading the peculiar text. Herbert states his facts without judgment or passion, but suddenly I could read frustration into his text. He pushed his men to investigate the underground tomb, an effort which seems to have strained the minds of his men. Madness spread through the ranks, and Herbert had to take some extreme measures to continue. He finally visits the chamber himself, where he retrieves the orb to the surface. His account confuses me greatly. If he has the orb, what are those pieces in my drawing room?
I don't know, and I also am not sure how this Herbert fits into the wider story, because he's always mentioned in passing as someone from Daniel's past, but he wasn't mentioned as involved in any of the more recent events, as opposed to, for example, Agrippa, because Agrippa was mentioned in that one of those glowing artifacts. The speaker was accusing him of, like, betraying his trust or whatever. Door is stuck due to a broken lock. Yeah, but I should probably be able to...
The key. Please, let it be here. Oh, thank God, there it is. I guess it is a good place to hide it then.
Key to the machine room. And I guess this is probably the Revelation Journal part 3. You better find a place to hide. You have no means to defend yourself. Okay, I think it's gone. At least for the time being.
4th of July, 1839. It's done! The orb is assembled. I was awakened by an exhausting nightmare. Shaking and sweating, I retired to the drawing room with a cup of tea. The relic pieces lay spread across the table as I'd left them, but somehow I knew how it was supposed to be. I fetched the tar, which I had prepared to fix the pieces together, and without fault I joined them, producing the orb I remembered so clearly. The tar proved unnecessary. It was pushed out from the joining pieces as they merged on their own, with no adhesive. The ancient stone relic now rests on my table. Its immaculate surface and perfect shape could have been molded by a factory. This is all too strange.
Okay, but regardless of what it all means, this episode has been long enough, so I'm going to pause it here. That's all for this one, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.